Yo ho ho, this is Captain Dirty, and we're coming back with another Captain Dirty Reacts. Today we're going to do something a little bit different from what we've done recently, and we're going to step into some Star Citizen drama. Oh yeah, we're jumping on that bandwagon, everybody. You know what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about Morphologis and his hatred of the A2 bomber. Let's see what he's got to say here. Before we get too far into this, I do want to say I saw the original Rage clip from Morphologist's stream. I haven't really followed too many of the other videos that have come out. I know it's become a bit of a wildfire debate here within the community. So, I think about a week has gone by now, and I think Morphologist has finally probably calmed down and maybe released a little bit more of a even-keeled perspective on the A2's current power level. Let's see what he's got to say.
This is the A2 bomber, and this is what it can do.
Yep, there it is. So, in the unlikely event that some of you watching don't know what's going on, recently Morphologis was conducting an org operation where it looks like they were trying to hold down Jumptown. And somebody flies in and basically suicide bombs the entire operation and just deletes everybody practically with one single bomb drop. Let's take another look at it real quick.
A2 bomber, and this is what it can do. So I wanted to do a video talking about nerfing, or what I'm really saying is rebalancing the A2, but I couldn't do that without directly addressing some of the controversy I started about last week or so on a stream that I did, and it was shortly following an event or an experience that I'm showing here on the screen, wherein I was bombed by an A2 who had come in and effectively suicide bombed without me being able to stop them, along with the rest of the group that I was playing with.
So I'm gonna stop here. That seems like a fairly accurate retelling of the events, with one little caveat there. Morphologist expresses the opinion that there was nothing that could be done to prevent this from happening. I want to hear what else he's got to say, but I have a feeling that we're going to disagree on this.
And so I wanted to clear the air a little bit about my position, what happened, and my perspective, because I felt really, really bad about the way what I said came off, because I said that the position of people saying that the A2 didn't need to change was stupid came off as me saying that people are stupid, and that got turned into people saying that I said that they were idiots, which I didn't and I didn't mean, but it came off that way, and so I felt I needed to apologize because, again, I felt really, really bad. I didn't want people to feel like I was personally attacking them, because I don't think personally attacking people is a great way to continue to have a conversation about a game's balance.
Okay, so yeah. When you say that somebody's opinion about something is stupid, it is not too far of a stretch for that person to think that you think that they are stupid for holding those opinions. So yeah, no shit, people were pissed off at you, dude. But good on you for being big enough to apologize for that. Yeah.
Especially about a game that I personally care a lot about, which is Star Citizen. And frustratingly, one of the things that happened because of this is that a lot of people made content and videos about this and posts, which further misconstrued my my argument, and it kind of became like a game of telephone, where by the end of it, people thought I was saying, they need to get rid of the A2 altogether and completely nerf it with no bombs, and that, I just want to nerf everything, or some stupid stuff like that, which is not at all what I was saying.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it here. I don't think the A2 really... I don't think the bomb needs a nerf. I do think the shield strength and hull strength of the A2 and all of the hercs could could definitely come down a little bit. Or conversely, the weapons need to be doing a little bit more damage. It can take a ridiculous amount of time for even a small group of 4 or 5 players in light fighters, say, to take down the shields of a A2. We're talking like 10 minutes if that A2 is evading and flying in a way that makes it difficult to hit it. So, okay, we're going to partial agree, I think, here with Morphologis. Let's see what else he's got here.
Though at the time, I was really emotional. I was really upset at the experience, and that's kind of the raw experience you get when you watch someone stream, at least for me, is that it's a bit unfiltered. It comes off on the moment, and there's not like a structured way I'm presenting material. I'm just speaking off the cuff, which is kind of the cool thing about streaming, but also has downsides.
Okay, so I actually wasn't listening to too much what he was saying here and just kind of watching what's happening on the screen. Um, it looks like there's a group of about 8 or 9 players here that appear to be working cooperatively. They've got ground vehicles, they've got a tonk here. That looks like everything that's present. And I want to point out something here. All right. We've got a group, a medium-sized group, I would say, of something like 10 players. Um, Half of them are sitting inside the bunker. Okay. I don't know whether or not they've gone in and cleared it. Maybe that's what they're doing right now. Maybe they just got here and they're clearing the bunker. Uh, Regardless of that, I'd like to take a look at the escort fighters here. I'm not sure if these are escorts or not. We'll assume that those aren't, since they're landed on the ground. Maybe that's their. I can't even tell what ship that is from here. Um, Anyhow, you've got a cutlass and some kind of light fighter here. Looks like, and neither of them really seem to be actively defending the airspace. They are right on top of the location, so they're not going to get any kind of heads up that something is coming in, an A2 or anything else. So, smart of you to have some air support here, but your air support could be much more active, even in just the, kind of guarding standby, right? You can be actively standing by and actively guarding a location. And what do I mean by that? um, the immediate thing I would say is to do to fly a circular pattern, maybe 5,000 kilometers uh, above, or sorry, 5 kilometers above the surface of the moon. That way, you're going to get a good heads up. If you're circling around, if there's a group of players gathering just outside of radar range, for those of you sitting right on top of the location here, if you've got somebody sweeping around, say 5 kilometers up and 5 kilometers away from the location, you might chance upon a group preparing to attack you, or you might chance and see an enemy fighter or a group of fighters coming in before they're going to be right on top of you, right? And the A2 is not a fast ship. Okay, so if you've got 2 or 3 of these fighters and they are patrolling the area, actively looking for threats, there's good odds that you can encounter that A2 or at least be aware of it, uh, maybe a minute before it can reach its target and drop its bomb. Okay, so it's not like there aren't things that you can do. Having a torque boat is a good thing too, right? Nothing like a size 9 to ruin the suicide bombing mission You know, you could do an eclipse, you could do a retaliator. There's options here, right? And those I would park right on top of the station because we know where the A2 is going to go, right? We know it's going there. So you put the torpedo boat in front of your target, right? Anyways, let's hear some more.
I'm just speaking off the cuff, which is kind of the cool thing about streaming, but also has downsides because sometimes you say things that you didn't mean, and you say things before you've fully formed arguments. At least that's what I do sometimes. But now I've had a chance to really kind of fully form my thought process on why I think the A2 needs to be rebalanced, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that so it could be more clearly understood my position on the subject, because I really feel very strongly about this point, and I wanted you guys to understand where I was coming from. But before you guys listen to me talk about my opinion on the subject, I want to also add in a little bit of a disclaimer here, and that's I don't actually have as much weight as a lot of you guys might think I do when I talk about gameplay design choices in Star Citizen. Many of you guys think that I'm somehow, altering or influencing CIG's plans, which I'm not, and I am incapable of doing. When it comes to things like...
Yeah, so I think this is a common misconception. People love to hate content creators, and not just dirty pirates like myself. Even, straight-laced guys like Morphologis here get hated on, right? And maybe some of that's fair. Maybe some of that isn't that fair. Yeah, I don't think CIG pays any more attention to content creators, large or small, than they do to the other groups of players within, Star Citizen's community. You've got solo players, you've got group players, you've got Care Bears, you've got PvPers, you've got pirates. The list goes on and on how you could kind of categorize different types of Star Citizen players, not just content creators or not content creators, right? And I didn't take a look at it, but I did hear that CIG just released a statement saying that they do pay attention to all of these groups. I think it's important for people to speak their truths, to say their opinions, and all of that feedback helps CIG. I don't think that they listen to or put more weight behind Morphologis's opinion than they would to any other group of players within Star Citizen.
Like ship and area design, stuff to do with architecture and the way things look, yeah, I do have some influence at CIG when it comes to those things, because that's my wheelhouse, that's my expertise. But when it comes to game development, I have no experience in this area, and so they don't take my thoughts and my feelings with the same amount of weight. CIG doesn't make gameplay decisions based on the feedback of one or even a group of creators, or even, in some cases, a large portion of the community. They make gameplay decisions based on their own internal reasoning, based on the direction they want to go and the balanced vision that they have for the game and certain ships and features that have yet to come in. And so when CIG make a decision, when they make a gameplay change, it's not because a creator said something, it's because they made that decision and it just happened to align with what a creator says. It's rather kind of like a coincidence more than a direct effect. And one other thing to keep in mind is that usually when people make videos that are successful and that people see, it's because what they're expressing is something that aligns at least with some level of the community. And so if that sentiment already existed, that's probably a sentiment that already exists in CIG's mind as well. So if you get what I'm saying here, I don't have an effect on CIG. I just sometimes say things that CIG are thinking by chance, and they make those changes. But they do occasionally listen to what the community is saying and, put that into the little discussion that they might have about the subject. And that's why I like talking about it a bit more so than anything else. I just like talking about Star Citizen, and so I wanted to talk about the subject and start a discussion to see what you guys thought about it. That's why I did it on stream, and that's why I'm making a video on it right now. So now let me speak on why I think the A2 needs to be rebalanced and how that might be accomplished. So one of the really big important things I want to get across with this discussion right away is that I am not talking about whether or not the A2 can be countered. In fact, it can be countered. That's not really what I'm debating. Initially, when I talked about this, I said the A2 is impossible to counter when it's suicide bombs, but even then, it is still possible to counter it, but that isn't really the point I was trying to make.
Okay. Well, okay, yeah. If you say it's impossible to counter, words have meaning, right? So if you say it's impossible to counter, and that's not true, people are going to call you out on that. Okay. So get it, you were emotional, right? And maybe misspoke and didn't choose the right word. But don't fucking gaslight us, bro. Like, you said you can't counter it. That's not true. You can counter it. There are ways to deal with it. If what you meant to say was that it needs a rebalancing, I think a lot of people would actually agree with you on that statement, but that's not what you said.
So let's set that aside for a moment in order for you to clearly understand my argument. What I was trying to talk about with the A2 is that the effort required on the part of the A2 pilot to bomb is not proportional to the amount of effort required to counter the A2 on the other side.
Okay, yeah, that's true, right? The A2 is a huge, shield and hull tank, and all they have to do is fly in a straight line to the target and drop their bomb and pull up if they want to live. That's not that difficult to do, although bombing is not a skillless. Um, it takes some skill to do that. So let's not discount that, right? You have to know how to accurately drop those bombs, and yeah, your targeting computer is going to help you. But like, let's not pretend like somebody's in their first run in an A2 is gonna first thing that they do is hop into the A2 and go successfully bomb a jump town mission. I don't think that's likely, right? You're gonna have to practice at it a little bit in order to get those movements down, right? However, I do agree with you that mm, I don't know, maybe to a certain extent, I think it's somewhat more difficult to counter the A2 than it is to use the A2, but not by that much, really. Like I was saying earlier, let's say that you are holding down Jumptown, okay, and you've got two or three any type of fighter, doesn't matter. They're not even there really to fight. They're just there to scout, right? They're there. They're your early warning system, right? They're going to tell you what direction the A2 is coming from. Then your torp boat, who's sitting right over Jumptown or at Jumptown, if it's a ballista, uh, they turn that way and they lock up their target and they fire their torpedo. The nice thing about torpedoes is that they're self-propelled. So they're going to fly out to meet that A2. And if it's a size 9, that A2 is not going to have a good day. Maybe it takes 2 size 9 torps, but any vehicle that can carry size 9s can carry more than one, right? Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. I don't really use torp boats that much. But anyhow, that's how you counter it, right? All right, let's hear what else he's got to say.
At Jumptown. Here's exactly what I mean. So in order for you to bomb at Jumptown, all you require is an A2 and your ability to fly it, and knowledge of how to arm and drop the bomb. And if you have a little bit of sense, you'll drop it at nearly point blank, not allowing anybody on the ground to actually shoot the bomb before it hits.
Yeah, that's something I didn't even mention, right? If the A2 drops the bomb from too high, or really any distance, if you're close enough to the A2 and prepared for the bomb drop, you target the bomb, you blow up the bomb, and you kill the A2 in the process if you do it fast enough. I don't see why Morphologis, if he was a little bit closer to the target and had his guns ready to go for the bomb, couldn't have just blown up this A2. Now, maybe the A2 gets so close and drops its bombs like precisely 20 meters over Jumptown, right? And there's just not time. Okay, Yeah, maybe, but like they'd have to be going so slow to do that. I still think you can fire off a torpedo or two to prevent this sort of thing from happening. And at a last ditch, you could just shoot the bomb out of the sky, right? So there's actually a lot of ways to counter this. Anyhow,
And if you really want to troll, all you have to do is drop the bomb as you run into the ground, and there's very little people can do to stop you. On the other side, there's a couple things that you can do. In one scenario I talked about with A1, Avenger1, who is a well-known PvPer in the community, what you could do is have a scout looking for A2s approaching, and then just run away with your group of 2 other friends and make your money that way. But in this scenario, you still require 3 skilled individuals. 1 person being able to take the boxes out of the conveyor at Jumptown, 1 person to fly the getaway ship, and 1 skilled person able to fly a fighter to scout and make sure an A2 isn't approaching. In this scenario, you can't have a new player because they just won't know how to do what they need to do in order for you to survive. However, if you want to actually be able to stop the A2 before it's able to drop a bomb point blank, which is the worst case scenario, you're going to need a lot more DPS to stop it. So what you might have is a number of ballistas. In order for you to have ballistas though, you need to have a C2 or M2 or even A2 to be able to transfer your ballistas onto the ground. You'll also need scouts to be able to tell the ballistas where the A2 is coming from. You'll also want to have those scouts be in greater numbers because you need to be able to fan out around Jumptown to...
Okay, you're losing me here, dude. Yeah, it requires some logistical planning to get ground assets to a target location. More logistical planning than it currently takes an A2 pilot to spawn their A2, fly over there, and drop their bomb. But unless we're going to require those A2 pilots to like source their munitions and transport their munitions, I don't see what you could ask them to do that would require more work, right? And like I get it. It's frustrating that you and 10 of your buddies wasted an hour of your time doing all of that boring ass logistical shit to go get to target only to have this A2 fly in and blow you all up. But you know what? That happened because you weren't prepared. You spent all of your focus on getting there and doing the thing, and your air support was AWOL, right? Where were your torps? You didn't have any. You were playing with the new Centurion, which didn't do you any favors in this situation. Guess what? Because it's not designed to deal with with an A2, right? So you made the mistake of bringing the wrong gear, spending all of your time bringing the wrong gear to Jumptown, and now you're gonna cry about it.
to detect whether or not it's coming from, any different direction. And you only have, because keep in mind, you only have about 25 seconds to stop it before it gets to the point when it comes within radar range.
Okay, that's true. Right. You can't rely on even a group of like sentinels or vanguards, right? It's going to take longer than 30 seconds for you to get through the shields and get through the whole of the C2. And I do think that that is a problem, right? Time to kill shouldn't be over a minute, right? For sustained fire of a reasonable volume on your target. The time to kill of some of the ships in Star Citizen is ridiculous. Anyways, some of them aren't bad, but some ships, looking at you, Herc series, you've got way too much shields, you've got way too much hull strength for the power of the weapon so far. It should not take a group of six people any longer than like 1 minute of sustained fire on your ship before you're done, right? I've seen in my own personal gameplay as long as 10 minutes to just get through the shields of a Herc. That's crazy. That's completely unbalanced, and I'm going to agree with Morphologis on this point.
And optimally, if somebody has an Eclipse or Retaliator, they're going to want to sit directly above Jumptown, ready to shoot a torpedo at an approaching A2, because as I said earlier, shooting a torpedo behind the A2 isn't going to catch it in time before it actually bombs. So you need to be in front of it, which means that you need to be directly on top of Jumptown.
That's also going to increase the odds of it hitting the target. Your target's going to have less time to respond to that, less time to evade, less time to spam the countermeasures. Their mental stack, their mental focus is going to be on their bombing run at this point. They're not going to want those additional distractions that you're offering them by firing off a torpedo, right? So, yeah, I guess you probably had to ask around and talk to some people who do PvP to figure all this out. But yeah, the solution to this problem is not that difficult. It currently exists within the game. I don't think it's the most fun uh, gameplay that exists in Star Citizen to sit on top of JT in a torp boat and wait for A2s to come so you can pop them. But it probably does feel good to deny that A2 their easy kills, right? I'm sure that moment does feel good.
But in order for you to do that, in order for you to be there, you're also going to need support, because both the Retaliator and the Eclipse are fairly vulnerable by themselves. The Retaliator has no guns by itself, it can only shoot torpedoes, and the Eclipse is fairly weak, and pretty much the same deal, it only shoots torpedoes. It does have two size 2 ballistic guns by default, but those aren't going to do anything before you get killed. In this particular scenario you're seeing on screen, we had a fully manned Retaliator, which is the only reason why I was able to come in here by myself without any sort of fighter support, which enabled me to kill a number of people, but I wouldn't have been able to do that without the support of my people on the ship, and all of this in order to counter an A2. Now, I have also seen the argument floated counter to what I was talking about, that the only ship you need to counter the A2 is an Eclipse. But in this scenario, you need a very expensive ship that not everybody has, and so you're creating a sense of elitism in order for you to stop a specific ship.
I don't think the Eclipse is that expensive in game. Couple mil, maybe?
And I don't think that's a great way to balance the game. If the only way for you to play to counter somebody who spent $700+ on a ship is to spend $300 or whatever it costs for the Eclipse, then that's not really great.
All right, man. You're not being intellectually honest here. You don't have to spend $300 to get an Eclipse. You can just grind for, a day, 2 days, and just buy it in game. Sure, you'll have to do that every wipe. Okay, fine. But that's not, I mean, you know, you don't have to spend $300, dude. Just be honest.
Doesn't really help the argument that Star Citizen is not pay to win.
Okay. Yeah, it's true. Somebody could spend $700 and buy themselves an A2 and do this. However, you can spend 2 days grinding in whatever fighter you've got and afford an Eclipse. It's not that expensive in game.
That very much looks pay to win to me. And so, in my mind, and you can disagree with me here, which I'm sure many of you will, that it should require a little bit more effort on the part of the A2 pilot in order for them to actually bomb Jumptown. That they would require some support from either gunners on board the ship to protect them as they come in, or even a small wing of fighters to escort them in to make sure that they're not picked off. In order for them to balance this then, in my view what needs to be done is that, at least in the short term, that the range that the ship is able to drop the bomb should be increased. In other words, you should have to drop the bomb at a higher altitude, giving players a chance to shoot the bomb before it hits the ground. Additionally, the ship should have a maximum speed in my mind before...
All right. We'll address his second point in just a moment. Yeah, it'd be nice if there was some kind of limit, right? Because you would have more time to shoot the bomb. Okay. But like that's just kind of putting an artificial limitation on the game. There's no basis in reality for that. You can arm a bomb the second you drop it from your whatever airplane, right? So I don't see why, what logical reason there would be in Star Citizen other than to appease Morphologis, to create some kind of you know uh, artificial limitation on how high you can be before you drop the bomb. All right, so solution number one, nope. Let's see what his second idea is. We're gonna back up just a little bit so we can get the whole thing.
before it hits the ground. Additionally, the ship should have a maximum speed in my mind before it's able to drop the bomb. That way it can't fly at top.
Okay, actually, he had a couple points there, right? So let's address the other point. Um, he stated that the A2 should require some support, that it should be more fragile, essentially. And I think I can agree with him on this. I don't think it needs to be like completely nerfed into the ground. But CIG has stated, in the past that their kind of model for what they want space combat and atmospheric combat in Star Citizen to be is to, kind of give you that World War II experience, right? This has been talked about before by a lot of different content creators. But it's basically the same thing like Star Wars, right? Where is the space combat idea from Star Wars? What is it based off of? It's based off of World War II aerial combat, right? And aerial combat in World War II was dramatic. It looks good on screen. There's a lot going on, and it's not happening at such far ranges where it's it's hard to tell as an audience what's happening, right? You can see on the screen one fighter is turning away and the other one is trying to get an angle on him, and you can see that, right? And that makes sense to us as people watching. Okay, this is where the Star Citizen idea comes from, and yeah, we got missiles. Okay, but let's just forget about that for a second. The missiles are, for the most part, kind of inconsequential most of the time. The real combat is about the guns, right? Um, Looking at the World War II model, right? You had the B-17, the B-24, these huge, well-armed bombers with 10 or 8 or 12 different spots for gunners to be on board to defend that airplane, right? But the airplanes didn't have shields, okay? And if they took a certain amount of damage, they'd go down. But these planes were built to sustain that damage, and some of them come back with half a wing, the tail missing, riddled with bullet holes, and three-quarters of the crew killed in action, right? But they still manage to come back sometimes. Okay, so those planes were not easy for a single fighter to take down. Um, it wasn't impossible, but it wasn't easy, right? You'd have to score hits on fuel tanks, and even then, they're compartmentalized so that the fires, should go out. They've got 4 engines. You're going to have to take out most of them, right? Probably the best way to deal with it would be to get a pilot kill, right? If you snipe out the pilot and the co-pilot, nobody's flying that plane. It's going down. Okay. Um, but, it's not to say it wasn't possible for a single fighter to take down something like a B-17 or a B-24. It's not outside the realm of possibility. It's just hard. Okay. And that should be the balance that I think Star Citizen should go for, honestly. It should not require, 4 or more people to wear down the shields over the course of 10 minutes of sustained fire, right? That's ridiculous, right? Um, but you should also be able to have some expectation of survivability in the A2, right? So that's a difficult line for CIG to walk. It's got to be easy enough that one person skilled enough can do it, but hard enough that it isn't trivially easy for an organized group of players to deal with one of these things. Um, and we're also still in alpha, right? So we don't have our AI gunners, we don't have our computer gunners. We've got to rely on people to get in these ships and man the turrets. Um, so yeah, it's an alpha. There's a ways to go. Definitely balancing needs to happen. But I don't really think balancing is even on the list of priorities for CIG right now. Um, and also we all know that all of the new ships come out overpowered, and it's no secret, right? The Hercs, yeah, they're about due for their nerf, and I expect that nerf will be to the shields and hull strength. Um, will it be enough? Will it be too much? I don't know. We'll see. But that's where we're at right now.
Top speed through atmosphere, avoiding torpedoes, and avoiding any DPS that would put any dent in it before it's able to bomb its target, at least by itself. I don't think that the bombs need to be removed, or even nerfed. I think it's really cool to have a really big fancy explosion. I only hope that the cost of doing something like this is more than just monetary, that it requires a lot more skill and effort on the part of the bomber in order for them to do it, because the consequences of it are so great and so imbalanced that it just doesn't seem fair to everybody else at the moment. But hey, maybe none of this conversation even really matters because they're probably going to be changing the flight model pretty soon with all this talk of...
All right, so I'm gonna stop here. Here's something that I think is realistic for CIG to do that wind, weather, these things affect bombs when you drop them. If it's an unguided or even a guided bomb will be affected by these forces, right? So maybe there's an upper limit to how far you can drop your bomb and expect it to land on target, right? But if we're looking at history, which is again where the kind of concept for combat in this game comes from, we look back at World War II, and there were two types of bombers. You had dive bombers and you had level bombers, and there was a little bit of an in between there, but for the most part, that's what it was. And your level bombers, they weren't very accurate. Um, they would carpet bomb, and they would drop uh, hundreds of tons of bombs and saturate an area because they didn't have the precision that came from dive bombing, which is what this guy. Yeah, it wasn't really a dive bomb. It was more of a very shallow dive bomb. Um, but looking back at in history, the most accurate bombers were the ones who flew the lowest and dropped their bombs at the very last second in order for them to pull out of the dive and get out of there before the bomb explodes. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna hard disagree with you, Morphologis. Your solution here is crap as far as limiting the bombing or artificially changing the balance of how bombs work because you're butthurt about it. That's garbage. You do have a point about the Hercs needing a little bit of a nerf in terms of shields and hull.
Quantum Boost, it does sound like they're going to be bringing maximum speeds down to SCM level, and so at that kind of speed, it probably will balance the ship anyway. But what do you guys think? I'm sure some of you guys are still not going to understand my point, still not going to agree with me, and well, if you're that kind of person, you're probably not even watching at this point.
So yeah, as far as them bringing the ships down to SCM speeds, that does kind of bring us back towards that World War II style of slower flight. And I think that makes a lot of sense in atmosphere. Atmospheres will limit how fast you can travel. But when you're out in space, I don't know, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to be limiting speeds, especially that low. Um, I kind of like what CIG has done because I understand it, right? In order to get the type of combat that they want, you can't have ships flying around at, you know, a kilometer a second, uh, and expect to have any kind of accuracy with those guns. I think that that's smart. Um, I think they just need to go even further with what they've done and say if you're over SCM speed, you don't have a chance in hell of hitting your target. But this creates other problems, right? Because you're just kind of thinking about this in the dogfighting perspective, right? Of people trying to get angles on each other and keep their guns on target while not being in the gun sights of your opponent, right? But when you change it to a pursuit, right? What if it's a group of pirates pursuing a trade ship, right? The trade ship has no incentive to stay in SCM speed. Okay, they're gonna go as fast as they can to get out there, right? So if CIG says, well, your guns just aren't gonna work at all over SCM speed, then what other counterplay do pirates have for targets that are pursuing? Currently, there is none, and that's a major problem, right? So I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical about them, putting a hard limit on speeds, especially in zero G environments. Maybe in atmospheric environments that might be a thing. Um, but yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see what CIG does. In terms of balancing this game, which again, they're not even thinking about balancing this game right now outside of let's sell some ships with an overpowered ship every 2 or 3 months, and then we'll nerf it back down a little bit, and then we're gonna forget about it until all this other stuff is done, right? So I mean, kind of this whole conversation is a little bit, you know, uh, it's pointless right now, really, to have a conversation about game balance currently. Uh, there's 50 things that any of us could probably talk about when we want to talk about game balance in Star Citizen, but it's just one of those things where it doesn't really matter right now. Like we don't even have all the ships in game to really get a full picture of what CIG wants to have in the game. Um, so, anyways, yeah, I do think balancing will be very difficult for them once they do get to that point. But they're just not really there yet, I don't think. So we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Point, so I'm not really talking to them. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit informal and it didn't have a lot of really pretty shots like my usual videos, but I really wanted to get this out there and clear the air and make my position clear. So anyway, guys, I've been Morphologis. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.
All right, well, that's that. We'll see how long the Morphologis A2 drama lasts. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back at you with another Captain Dirty Reacts before too long.